We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. Iowa has just had a slew of commitments. I have kept you guys updated every step of the way. And so I just wanted to do another quick video on the three most recent commitments that Iowa has garnered or gained. Joseph Anderson, number one, Jalen Watson, number two, and Rashad Godfrey, number three. Nothing crazy about it. I mean, I would say that all three of them are more or less developmental prospects in varying degrees. But there are some things that I like about all three of them that I can absolutely see why the Iowa coaching staff chose to offer them and ultimately really heat up their recruitment. So let's start with Rashad Godfrey. He hails from the state of Florida. Very tall DB. I think he's 6'1", 6'2". Phil Parker, not that he will not go after shorter corners. I mean, we've seen Desmond King, players like that. But I would say of late, we've seen a concerted effort to go after 6'1", 6'2", 6'3" DBs. Phil Parker definitely likes his DBs to have that full range. And Rashad Godfrey has that at 6'2". He's out of Florida. He plays in one of the higher divisions in that state. Some of the best high schools in the country are some of the schools that his Armwood High School has played against. But the big thing is just the talent that he has gone up against. Some big names. I mean, we're talking former high 4-star, 5-star recruits. Now, why he flew under the radar is, it could be for a variety of reasons. Could be that he wasn't able to get out to camps. Could be, that he had a growth spurt. Ultimately, it's hard to pinpoint why somebody falls under the radar, but I would say generally it's a lack of being able to go to these mega camps and things of that nature. And that I would say that seems to be the case for Rashad Godfrey. He had offers from Arkansas State, Boston College, Charlotte, Coastal Carolina. So he has a decent offer list: Duke, East Carolina, FAU, Jackson State, USF, Western Michigan, North Dakota State. He has a different offer sheet. I mean, I think it's definitely decent. When he is finally ranked by 247 Sports, I think he's going to be at 86 or at 87. That's probably the grade that he will get. Either way, I believe, and I said this to you guys when Iowa hired these coaches, Liddell Betts and Abdul Hodge, even Kelton Copeland for that matter. I told you guys that Iowa was absolutely going to make a concerted effort to get back into the state of Florida, as they hired coaches with direct ties to high schools in Florida. I mean, the coaches that they have hired have been head coaches of schools in Florida. And usually what that means is excellent connections with fellow coaches of these high school recruits, and just a knowledge of the area. And getting a commitment from somebody, one of the better schools in the state of Florida, is always good. I mean, whether he's under the radar or not, getting a commitment from a individual in the state of Florida from a high level school is always a big deal. Just to put a bow on the Florida situation, trying to see, I don't think Iowa has any other Florida guys. Well, maybe they do have two. Yeah, James Razor is from the state of Florida. Jacksonville. I always forget that he's from the state of Florida. So Iowa has two commitments. They may end up having three when it's all said and done. Let's look back at 2023. Iowa received commitments from, let's see here. Kamari Moulton, and Jariet Bowie, those two from the state of Florida. Ultimately, guys, Iowa is never going to have, it's just not their recruiting strategy. They're never going to have a predominance of recruits from the state of Florida or Texas or anything like that. The primary bulk of their recruits are going to come from the Midwest, Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, Minnesota, Wisconsin. I would say definitely Iowa and Illinois. Iowa recruits Illinois hard. Let's see. But Josiah Patterson from Deerfield Beach. But what the state of Florida does is it allows Iowa to shore up their class. And really what they're looking for is I would say anywhere from 1 to 4 guys from a state like Florida to really just shore up the recruiting class. The bulk of it is going to be Iowa and Illinois, and on the peripherals, it'll always be states like Florida. And I think it's only going to improve from here every year since we've seen some of these coaches come to Iowa. We have seen Iowa doing better in that state. At the end of the day, all these recruits cannot go to Florida State, Florida, Miami, schools like that. So the next one, so I really like that commitment. Like I said, the main thing I like about him is he has gone up against excellent competition. He has an excellent frame, and I think that this is a good match. I believe Phil Parker is high on him, or else he would not have felt comfortable giving him a scholarship. The next guy is, let's see here, Joseph Anderson. This is probably the highest of the three, the highest rated guy of the three. 247 Sports and On3 give him a grade of an 88. He's the 11th ranked player in the state of Missouri. Ultimately, it came down to Iowa and Nebraska. In fact, I would say Nebraska was the longtime favorite to land his commitment. Ultimately, that did not happen. He is the son of Benny Anderson, who played 6 seasons in the NFL. He really has a good offer sheet: Kansas State, Nebraska, Kansas. He is a track guy, a little bit lean right now. As you guys can see, he's only 210 pounds. He's going to have to gain a lot of weight, a lot. But as far as the athletic tools, they are all there. 6'5", 210 pounds. Iowa will pack on the weight that he needs to get, and he'll be good to go. This is going to end up being one of the more under the radar recruits. And if he can gain, I would say 20 to 30 pounds between now and the end of his senior season, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a 4-star player by at least one of the recruiting services. And the last guy, and this is the most recent, is Jalen Watson. I was talking to you guys about him for a while now. Things absolutely heated up with him in Iowa when he went to Iowa's camp, and they worked him out at defensive back. This dude had offers at the wide receiver position from some pretty legit schools. I mean, honestly, Iowa is the only school that saw him at DB. We're talking Cincinnati. We're talking Louisville, Maryland, Minnesota, West Virginia. All of these schools offered him at wide receiver. That's a pretty good offer sheet at wide receiver. So he does not have a ton of experience at the defensive back position. I think a lot of what Phil Parker sees is an athlete that he knows that he can get into his room and he will teach him all the tools of the trade that he needs to know. But as far as the foundation, the athletic tools required to be a defensive back in the Big Ten, Phil Parker believes he has. And I would agree with that. He's 5'11". He's a little bit on the shorter side compared to what Phil Parker usually gets. But as far as the athleticism and the versatility, I really like it. In fact, for me, I love, and we've seen this many times in the DBs that Phil Parker goes after, because he likes DBs who are ball hawks, who can get interceptions, who have good hands. We've seen Phil Parker go after defensive backs who play both offense and defense, who have good hands, and are versatile, who could play either side, but ultimately they decide to play defense. Because sometimes, there's the big joke about the reason somebody is a DB is because, like you'll see the YouTube videos where a guy is going up for an interception and a DB goes up for an interception and he drops it. And the meme is, well, that's why he's a DB, because he ain't got no hands. But when it comes to Phil Parker's defense, you see guys that are very versatile and definitely have the ability to play wide receiver. In fact, there's been many guys who there have been talks about them going to offense because of how talented they are and how in desperate need Iowa's offense is of guys. And we've seen the coaches say they absolutely could play offense. Cooper DeJean, Xavier Wanpa. I mean, you go down, Desmond King, you go down the list of these guys, they absolutely could have played on offense. So anyways, he's graded as an 86. I think when it's all said and done, he'll probably have a grade of a 87. 88 at the defensive back position. Once 247 Sports gets some film on him at the defensive back position, they got him out of the state of Ohio. Iowa has been a little bit quiet when it comes to recruiting the state of Ohio of late. You look back in the last 3 classes, and there's maybe only a handful of guys. I mean, you have Jalen Watson, you have Caleb Johnson, you have Joey Labus, but that's about it. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's been any more. I would say the top states that Iowa has recruited the last 3 cycles would probably be, outside of the state of Iowa, would probably be Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan. Indiana and Michigan are probably tied. Florida is up there. Nebraska would be up there as well. Iowa definitely has done good in the state of Nebraska, but usually it's maybe one guy in the state of Nebraska that Iowa gets the commitment from. So those would be the top states that Iowa has been recruiting of late. Like I said, Illinois number 1. I would say probably Indiana number 2, Michigan number 3. 3A, 3B, probably Michigan and Nebraska. So it's good to see Iowa get back in the state of Ohio. Here you guys can see Caleb Johnson, Hamilton, Ohio. I believe he is the nephew of Fred Russell. Iowa also recruits the state of Wisconsin pretty good. You guys can see 3 guys from the state of Wisconsin in the 2022 class. That's not bad. It really just depends, honestly. Iowa is always going to have a strong presence in this in the Midwest, but by and large, I would say, especially the last Joey Labus from Broadview Heights, by and large, I would say it's Iowa, it's Illinois, it's Indiana, Michigan, and now you probably throw Wisconsin in there too. Like I said, it really depends. It's hard to put a definitive number on it because every single time it changes. You look at 2021, Iowa had 10 commits from Iowa, 3 from Illinois, and 1 from Florida, 1 from Kansas, 1 from Minnesota, 1 from Missouri, 1 from Nebraska, and 1 from Ohio. Let's look at 2022. They had 4 from Iowa. Let me pull it over here. 4 from Iowa, 3 from Michigan, 3 from Wisconsin, 2 from Illinois. So, slightly less in the state of Illinois for that recruiting cycle. This is 2023, Iowa 6, Illinois 4, Indiana 3, Florida 2, Missouri 2, Michigan 1, Nebraska 1. See, that's what I'm saying. When Iowa goes to Nebraska, it's maybe for one guy per class. That's about it. Rarely is it more than one guy. In the current class, 2024, Iowa has 7 guys from the state of Iowa, which I think that'll probably be the end number that we see, unless there's 1 or 2 guys that emerge in the state during their senior year. Iowa has totally clamped down the state of Iowa when it comes to recruiting in this class. And they already have a 2025 commitment in Joey Van Vetska, which I guess is the 4th commitment in recent weeks that I could discuss. Illinois 4, so Iowa has done really good in the state of Illinois this class. Florida 2, Arizona 1, Indiana 1, Kansas 1, Missouri 1, Nebraska 1. So, like I said, it really just depends. So, lastly, let's take a look at the ranking. Let's do... This was last updated 7-9. These are the high school ratings. Dang, just a wealth of riches. Georgia 3 and 16 4-stars, 12 4-stars, and 4 5-stars for Ohio State. Unreal. Nebraska has had a really good class, guys. They did really well in the state of Nebraska this class, landing the top guy, a couple of wide receivers, and a quarterback. They landed 3 guys from Bellevue High School in Bellevue, Nebraska, I guess it would be. I believe Bellevue is right outside Lincoln, but let's see here. I think Nebraska, if everything stays the same, Bellevue West. If everything stays the same, so they landed 3 guys from Bellevue West. Bellevue West has really, the last couple of years, I mean, you think about it, Keegan Johnson, Micah Riley Ducker, who's at Auburn. Bellevue West has some high-end guys. I mean, that is a top-tier high school program. I think Nebraska, if all things stay the same, Nebraska will likely end up with the best class in the Big Ten West. Now, the only way that I can see that changing is maybe Iowa gets in on a few guys late that decommit from other schools that end up considering Iowa. By the way, Nebraska is highly being considered by the top guy in the state of Iowa in Grant Bricks. That is absolutely infuriating. If you think you're going to go to a Big Ten school, may as well go to Iowa. Why you go to Nebraska is absolutely foolish, but it is what it is. Such is the world of high school recruiting. There may be some guys that are already committed now that I could see being upgraded to low 4-star guys late in the process. There's probably 5 or 6 guys that I could see that being the case. So Iowa is 32nd with 19 commits in the country, which I would say is about accurate. They're probably right in the middle of, being ahead or being behind when it comes to the amount of commitments that they have. You see a lot of schools with 20 plus. Nebraska has 23, but then you see schools like South Carolina only with 13, Texas 13, Wisconsin 17, Minnesota already has 24. The real question, this video has gone on longer than I expected, but the real question is, moving forward, is going to be the scholarship distribution. That's going to be the real question, because with the transfer portal, schools now have more spots to fill than ever. And before, an average class would be between 20 and 24. I would say between 20 and 24 guys. 24 would be considered a big class. But now you're seeing cases where there's 30 high school recruits. And the real question is going to be how many of those scholarships from guys that end up transferring out do you give to high school guys, or do you hold back and give them to transfer portal guys? That is the real question. And I think that the schools who have the most hits and do the best job of managing that will be the most successful moving forward. The last thing to discuss is the final two guys that are nearing decisions. Iowa is I would say they are currently the favorites to land wide receiver out of Florida, Jaquan Reed. I think it would be great if they land a third guy out of the state of Florida. The guy that I would say is the closest to committing is Chima Chineke, and this would be excellent if Iowa can land him. He's a guy who I could see developing into a 4-star. He is currently a high 3-star, and if he chooses Iowa, they will have yet another year of them having a really, really solid defensive line class. I mean, even without him, their defensive line class is really coming together. They have their under the radar guy in more developmental prospect in Davon Kennedy. They have their high upside guy in Joseph Anderson, and they have their high upside guy and, lineage in Drew Campbell, brother of Jack Campbell. So Chima Chineke is currently favored to choose the Hawkeyes. He has not committed yet. We'll see if that may happen. The other guy is Xavier Lucas out of the state of Florida, which that could be a fourth guy out of the state of Florida that Iowa lands. All right, guys. But with that, I would say right now, Iowa is in high contention for him. I would say Illinois is probably slightly ahead, but Iowa is absolutely in contention for his commitment, especially with Iowa landing a guy out of the state of Florida already. They would have that connection. All right, guys, like, comment, share, subscribe. I want to get to 2,000 subs before the start of the football season. As we get closer to the Iowa Hawkeyes' first football game, I will start making, my classic videos, such as position previews, my prediction for the season, the video that I make regarding which players need to have such and such statistic in order for Iowa to be successful as we get closer. January, February. I mean, we're still months away, so hang tight, guys. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. In fact, so feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you Hawk fans next time. Bye-bye.